This time of year, everyone talks about going dry. But at Athletic Brewing Company, we're skipping that because we prefer going athletic, which isn't dry at all. From crisp Goldens to hoppy IPAs and limited releases in between, you'll find something that fits your style. Every single non-alcoholic brew is packed with flavor and the same craft experience you love. So yeah, you could call it dry, but there's really nothing dry about it. Find your new favorite near beer at athleticbrewing.com. Athletic Brewing Company, fit for all times.
Hello and welcome to the Paddock and the Pavilion. I'm Stephen Wallace and this is part 2 of our Ashes Roundup with former England Test player and the show's cricket expert Roland Butcher. In this episode, Roland answers more listener questions on the action out in the middle and gives his thoughts on the future of England head coach Brendon McCullum. Away from the Ashes, Roland also looks ahead to the upcoming T20 World Cup, which gets underway on the 7th of February, before we finish by gazing into the crystal ball and hearing his early thoughts on the next Ashes series in 2027. Let's move on to some questions. I've got quite a few here. The first lot are on playing, and I'll read them both out because they've got similar. One's from Peter Hills. He's an Aussie. He now lives near Manchester. He's from Adelaide and he used to play at Marchtown, my own club. And he says with the next red ball cricket for England in 6 months' time or early June, what changes are needed to England, this is playing-wise, to bounce back stronger? And along the same lines, Ken Hutchinson, who now lives in Lanzarote, should Crawley be dropped and replaced by Hamid or Sibley, or have those two had their chances?
Well, I'll answer the first question. In terms of changes, listen, I think it would be a huge mistake to just rip up the script and say, let's start again, because all I think needs to happen now is really England need to sit down, review what happened, what went right, what went wrong, what could have been done better, reassess the situation, come up with a concrete plan as to how we want to play our cricket going forward, not just this summer. Have the right people in place to ensure that happens. And then get the players playing. Those players should be playing first-class cricket during the summer, leading into those test matches. I think a mistake that England is making and continue to make is that there are, by nature of the central contracts, the counties are not getting those players to play first-class cricket. You know, how do you get picked to play for England? By playing first-class cricket. Send those guys to play first-class cricket. It will help them. It will help the England team. It will strengthen the county teams. It will have more interest in people coming to watch their county team. It will help the young players in the club. And out of that, the result is that England, and I say England as a unit, not this current England team, but England as a unit, would benefit from all of that. Instead of having this situation where you take these players off into this little group and they practice, they don't play any cricket, and then they go into a series and you want them to perform at their maximum and to win, is a huge mistake. I don't want to see what happened with Jacob Bethel last summer happen again. 22-year-old who could have been playing first-class cricket. As you said, he's only played 20-odd games in his career. Not playing for Warwickshire. That cannot be right. For him, for Warwickshire, or for England, ultimately. No. So these players, I'm not ripping up the script, but I'm going to prepare better for the next series. You know, there may have to be one or two changes. Definitely Hamid and Sibley, no. I just don't think there are good enough players to do the job that I want to. If there's any change at the top, Bethel goes up for me.
But will Jacob Bethel be playing in the IPL early season, so won't be able to play for Warwickshire?
Yeah, I mean, he will be. I'm not sure when the IPL finishes, but when it's over, he should report for Warwickshire duty. And the other guys who are not playing IPL should be playing.
Because I remember last year when I think there was about 7 county matches before they went into the blast. I think Joe Root and Harry Brook, I think, played 1 game for Yorkshire, I think.
Well, Jacob Bethel played 1 game in the whole season for Warwickshire, which makes no sense at all. Because even after the India series, there were still 3 first-class matches left. So that's another potential 12 days of first-class cricket. Instead, they sent him to captain a T20 team. So I don't want to see that sort of thing repeated. You know, I want to see them help strengthen the county game, because that's the bread and butter. That's the bread basket for England cricket. You don't play for England unless you play county cricket. At the moment, they don't pick someone from school and put him straight in the England team. He gets picked because he has done a certain amount in county cricket. So why not strengthen the county game? Give the county game, which is ailing right now, it is weak in terms of players, it's weak in terms of performances. Give it a fillet. Make those guys play. They'll get their rest, but there's too much mothballs these guys are put in, and the county game, which is your breadbasket, is suffering.
You've answered the next question, but I am going to mention my friend Andy Bays, who said, should Rob Key and the selectors get the players to play more county cricket to prepare for the tests? Well, you've just answered Andy's question without me even reading it out. I'm now going to play a clip from our last episode about what you said about the England approach and whether the coach should continue if England fared badly in the Ashes. Will Brendon McCullum and Ben Stokes' tenure be judged by the results in this Ashes series?
I don't think you can judge a tenure by the result of one series. I think what you will find really is that at the end of the series, people will talk about whether the England side is as good as people think they are. I think that's the question, really, not necessarily the tenure of the coach and the captain. It is whether the methods of playing cricket are correct in this modern era when you're playing against, the best team in their home conditions. I think that's what's on trial. Whether the whole idea of aggressive, people call it baseball, but I call it aggressive batting. Whether that is the format, to give Australia a run for their money.
Before I get your response to that, I've got a couple of questions on the coach. The first one is from someone you and I both know, John the Dentist Maynard. And John doesn't sit on the fence. John says England have the talent, but have a coach who's just a privileged guy with people around him who were good players, but poor coaches. And they play around with buzzwords, not coaching. And that's from John. And another one from Francis Gamester. Will Brendon McCullum still be in post when England play New Zealand in June?
Yeah, 2 great good questions. Listen, I don't believe that England will make a knee-jerk decision to dispense with the services of the coach at this point in time. I think his powers may be reined in terms of having sole responsibility. I think also he will need to reflect on the mistakes that he and his team, and let's say his team, I'm not just talking about the players, but I'm talking about his support staff. The mistakes that he and his support staff have made, not just throughout this campaign, but I think right throughout their tenure. Whether they are prepared to adapt, refine, and in some cases change to ensure that England become a much more competent and competitive team going forward, to be able to compete against the best, not just trample on the weak. I think those are more the fundamental questions that the ECB will have to answer. It will make no sense just tearing up everything and starting again, because you're then putting everybody under pressure, players, the new man in charge. You're going to be expecting immediate results. You know, this is not a fairy tale. So it's not going to work out like that. I think McCullum will have to account for what happened. He would have to account for any errors of judgment and mistakes. Whether they need to strengthen the staff around them. There may be some persons in there who are not strong enough for the next phase of the England team development. There may also be some players who are not, or surplus to requirements going forward as well. So those are the big questions that they will have to answer. I think once they answer that question, you know, on paper, there's talent there. There's a good team there. It's just getting those other things right. So John is very perceptive in, he's a cricketer. He knows the game, and he has followed the game for a long time. And his comments are pretty fair.
Do you think Brendon McCullum will accept more input from, an assistant coach or other coaches in the setup?
I think he'll have to. If he doesn't really, then he would be surplus to requirements. The running of the England team cannot be a one-man show. To be quite honest, the run of any team cannot be a one-man show. You need so many different components to create a successful winning culture. There's no one man who has all the answers. I'm the man in charge. I say this, it happens, and everybody march to those orders. No, that doesn't happen. It has to be a collective group of people who, come to a conclusion and work diligently to get the buy-in of the players to go in that direction, and then everybody focuses on that. We live by it and we die by it. It cannot be, if it goes wrong, he gets the blame, coach gets the blame, or the captain gets the blame. No, so if McCullum is not prepared to adapt to that type of situation, then really it leaves the ECB in a situation where the position would be untenable. Then they would have to move on, because clearly what has transpired cannot be the blueprint for the future. Failure is not the blueprint for the future.
Ben Stokes to remain as captain, though?
I think as long as Ben Stokes is fit, healthy, and still has the hunger to lead and the hunger to play for England, by all means. I think he's a pretty proud man. I don't think he's a coward. I believe he's a guy, we've seen it in the past with his batting in particular. He's a guy that thrives on the big occasion. He loves a challenge. I'm sure he'll see the resurrection of English cricket as another challenge with him at the helm, and will want to take it on. If he gets the right structures around him and the support of everybody, the board, the players, and everyone, I think he could, he could get it back on a path. But the main thing is that he must want to do it. as a player. He must want to do it as a captain, not just say it, but if deep down that burning desire to do it is not there, then obviously England would have to think. But if he shows me, not just by saying it, if he shows me that he deeply cares, then by all means, you go forward with it.
At Sierra, discover top workout gear at incredible prices, which might lead to another discovery. Your headphones haven't been connected this whole time. Awkward. Discover top brands at unexpectedly low prices. Sierra, let's get moving.
Wow, all these patients complaining they can't get their medicines. Insurers and PBMs are often owned by the same giant company, so middlemen, like me, decide what medicines you can get and how much you pay. But don't worry, if your prescription gets denied, we know another one that works for us. I mean, you.
Washington should stop PBMs and insurers from driving up drug costs. Learn more at phrma.org/insurer costs. Paid for by Pharma.
Roland, briefly before we sum up, England now move on to the T20 World Cup, starting on the 7th of February in India and Sri Lanka. England are in a group with the West Indies, Nepal, Italy and Bangladesh. What do you think are England's prospects?
Well, I think England now have an opportunity to perhaps right the wrongs of the Test series in performing well in this tournament. Now, the question is, are they ready to go all the way and win this tournament? I'm not convinced that they are one of the favorites to win this tournament. I still believe the likes of India, Australia will be the main favorites of if you can have a bet, then I think those are the two teams that you would be looking to put money on. England have got a chance to get some form. I guess a lot of their players have been idle in terms of match play since the trip to New Zealand. But even the New Zealand trip had in a high number of Test players. So how quickly they can gel as a unit. Also, I think McCullum obviously in charge, so he now has to motivate a different group of players to be ready for this big tournament. Stephen, honestly, I don't believe that they have got it in them at this moment to win this tournament, because there's too many pieces that need to come together. I think they are much more organized teams at this point who are ready to perform. I think India, they've been playing a lot of cricket of late, so they're in pole position with their players, and I think that's going to be the situation really. England are going to fall up short.
Yes, India are just about to play a T20 series against New Zealand, and Australia playing a series in Pakistan. Harry Brook going to be leading England, which will also include Ben Duckett, Jacob Bethel, and hopefully a fit Jofra Archer.
Yeah, well, again, obviously some of the Test guys, yes. I think Duckett will be quite happy to not to have the responsibility of opening in the Test match. He can be free in the white ball game. Obviously, Bethel hasn't played a lot of cricket in Australia, so he should still be pretty fresh. Jofra Archer, we haven't heard anything lately of his comeback terms from injury, where he's at. So we'll have to watch and see how he goes and monitor that. I think there are too many pieces in the puzzle for England to be overly competitive.
How will the West Indies fare?
I think I fear for the West Indies. I think, as we've seen for quite a long time now, you get the odd performance, but there is no consistency in performance. Particularly in India, depends also on the quality of the surfaces. If it's true India, where be good for batting, but also should be good for spin bowling, then that is one of their weaknesses. So that would play against them. I don't think that they will be competitive either. I think it's going to be pretty hard for them.
So the likes of Australia or India for you to win the tournament?
Yeah, there may be other dark horse in there. You mustn't underestimate the improvement made by South Africa in the last year or so. That will make them also very competitive. I think if New Zealand can get, their full complement of players, they're also another competitive side. And, the Afghanistan, I think they were ruffled a few feathers as well. So, if there's going to be a outside team for me out of the big group, I think Afghanistan may be that team that can cause a few upsets.
South Africa should have won the tournament the last time when it was played in the Caribbean and the USA. And even though they won't win the tournament, I've just recently spoken to Stuart Law on the podcast, and in that last World Cup, Nepal took South Africa they only lost by 1 run, and England can't take teams like that for granted.
No. These days, listen, those teams like Nepal and others really look forward to these contests, and the idea of bringing in a big team is motivation for that team. So England cannot take them lightly. Nepal's cricket is improving as they go along. They recently won a series against the West Indies. Not that I'm saying that is a great achievement, but it's a fact that they'll beat a test playing country. So, you have to take that into consideration as well. Conditions may be a little bit more favorable for them than, say, if they were playing in England. So, yeah, you've got to take all of these teams, as they come. You can't take them lightly. And, I just really hope that it's an exciting World Cup. And I want to see some new and young future stars come out of this World Cup.
But for Brendon McCullum, although this is not a test series, it's going to be an important tournament for him for his future.
Of course. Once you give coaches the responsibility for all teams, then they have the responsibility for all results. So, he's come off the back of a bad result in the test series. The last thing he wants now is a bad result in this World Cup, because that also goes to the CV as well. So, yeah, he's on the trial. He's, it's not going to be easy for him. He's going to be under a lot of pressure. If he's going to fail and fail dismally, then, question marks again would be raised as to whether the idea of one coach for all formats. I personally don't believe that in this modern game, that's the way to go. I think that is divisive, and you should learn from the examples of mistakes being made by others, like the West Indies, who have gone down this route, and we've seen the result of all of that. So the fact that England have gone in that direction has surprised me, because as an international coach of any team, it's a very hard and demanding time. You spend a lot of time planning, training, preparing, traveling, and it's huge. That's for one tournament. But, when you're going to throw in T20, 50 over and tests, it can be overwhelming. And, I read something recently with a stat that, Harry Brook, a young player, he played 225 days in this last year. He's a player. Now, if a coach doing 3 teams, not only is he involved in those games, but the planning and preparation and It's enormous. So McCullum's he's under pressure. This probably World Cup has come at the wrong time.
Well, listeners, this episode now is in two parts, and we're drawing to a close. We're going to talk very, very briefly about the future for England. But to begin with, I've got a question from Sean Belushi, your friend, and he sent me a voice message about Australia's future.
Is it worrying for Australia that the majority of their players, especially the better performing players, were in their mid to late 30s? And in the last test match specifically, they only had one player under the age of 30, and that was Cameron Green. So what does it mean about the future of cricket in Australia? Now, the players in the early 30s, they've still got a chance they've sort of like 4 or 5 years left of their cricket careers. But the majority of players are going to be out of the Australian team within the next 2 or 3 years. And who's coming through? England actually were more positive on that side, where they do have a lot of young players in their side, and some of which actually performed well. So I think that bodes well for England, looking at the future.
So to end part two, Roland, how does that leave the two sides with the 2027 Ashes in England in mind?
Well, it leaves Australia in a better position because if you follow Australian cricket, there are a lot of players in their late 30s playing first-class cricket in Australia and performing. Australia, fortunately, because of the strength of their cricket, are able to even debut players late in their cricketing career at international level, and then those players still go on to have a good international career. So that's nothing new. I think that will continue with them. So you will get the Michael Nesses and those players who come into the side late and still perform. Scott Boland is still performing. There are many others still in the system like them. So, that has been the strength of theirs. So they're able to integrate that with some young players coming in, some seasoned players in the side. So it makes it easier for them to produce a team of players. Much harder for England because of, England's county cricket is not particularly strong. So they're really picking from a small pool where they've got all these contracted players. So that pool is very, very small. So players coming from the county game, even though somebody might score heavily or get a lot of wickets, you're taking a chance on them because the strength of the game there is not very strong. So those performances have to be taken into context. So somebody scores a lot of runs in a weak competition. Does that make them a good player, or does it make them a player who takes advantage of a weak situation? So it's harder for England to put the team together than it is for Australia, because when Australia brings in a player, generally old or otherwise, he's a proven player. Mike Hussey didn't play until his 30s, had a stellar international career. When he came into the side, by that time he scored over 10,000 first-class runs. So that is something that happened, Sean, in Australian cricket. They will make the transition. I don't think they'll change that strategy going forward because it served them well. It's for England to find the right makeup in their side to do that.
And I promise you my final question is a bit broader. What do England need to do then to give them a chance to win in Australia in 2029-30? We've got 4 years.
Right. I think for England to win, I think there's a series in 27, isn't there?
Oh, the one test, the pink ball test in the 150th anniversary match, yeah.
Yeah, I think what England has to do now is to use the Ashes as a separate competition, which requires separate planning, separate preparation, and start that preparation now, right? So who are the players? I'm looking to 2027 right now, so I'm looking for 2 years. Right? Who are the players that are going to be in my setup for 2027? Having identified those players, by the methods that whatever they use, the methods. What I need to do now with those players in order to get them ready, and when I say ready, I mean battle ready for the Ashes in 2027. Put that in place now. So you've got 2 years to fine tune that so that when they come to 2027, you are not trying to find a team. I'll give you an example. West Indies are currently playing a series against Afghanistan, I think in UAE. And the word coming out of the camp is that this series will also give some of the players opportunity to play in the World Cup. The World Cup is in a few weeks' time. So if the World Cup is in a few weeks' time, you are now thinking of what players in the series now can do well enough to get picked in a World Cup. But you have no chance of winning the test of World Cup. That is madness. So what I'm saying is England have to identify those players now, give them 2 years of thorough preparation and tested preparation. I don't mean 2 years of practice. You've got to give those guys find some windows to give them some serious cricket so that come 2027, you're not putting a squad together. You've had a squad that's been together for 2 years. And all you want them to do now is execute. So that's what England need to do now, is prepare from now for that time.
That's it from me, Roland. Thank you very much for joining me again for the first time in 2026, reviewing the Ashes of 2025, 2026. And from what you're saying and have said, it was a missed opportunity for England.
Most definitely. And England should think it as that. Okay, the result does not reflect, the 4-1 result does not reflect the closeness of the series. I think that had they won some critical moments, particularly in the first couple of test matches, they could have been the ones going into a 2-0 lead. It would have been flattening, I think, to have gone into that sort of lead, but they had the opportunities, were not able to take them, and the opposition improved as they went along. So I don't think all is lost. I think it's a temporary setback that can be corrected, but it will need a lot of foresight, a lot of reflection, and a lot of adaptation to make England, competitive again.
Thank you again. I look forward to speaking to you after the T20 World Cup.
Stephen, always a great pleasure. Glad you enjoyed your time down in Australia. Fantastic sporting country and place that I love to go to because sport is so, to the people of Australia, sport is not just a sport. It's part of the culture. It's part of life. And, a visit there, particularly, to watch the Ashes series it's something in a lifetime to cherish. And you had that opportunity and, we saw the pictures from your journey and I'm sure you had a great time.
I did, thank you. 8 days of Test cricket and you realise when you're out there you are actually playing against a nation.
Oh, yes. Oh, yeah. You don't walk onto the field and play against 11 players. It's the entire Australian population that you're playing against and they let you know that that's the case.